29th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy. We read, Atem Nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem. You stand this day, not some of you, not most of you, but kulchem, all of you. The text is extraordinarily inclusive. How inclusive is it? Listen. Your tribal leaders, your elders, and your officials, all the men of Israel, your children, your wives, even the stranger within your camp, from the wood chopper to the water drawer. Oh no, the Torah is quite clear that the covenant includes each and every one of us. No exceptions. No suppressing the covenant. The covenant with God is not only for the rich and the powerful, but kulchem, everyone. The covenant with God not only includes those with a certain skin color, but kulchem, everyone. The covenant with God not only is for those who are supportive of Moses' leadership, but those who are not. Kulchem, everyone. The covenant with God is not only for the tribes who will settle in the north, but those who will settle in the south as well. Kulchem, everyone. If everyone accepted the covenant included each and every one of us, well, then the good book wouldn't have to name all of these particular ones that might otherwise get left out. Now, you all probably know, because we all be reading and learning, but you know that in the Jim Crow South, in a courtroom, if an African American was called to testify, there wasn't one Bible for every witness. There was a separate Bible that would be brought out that would be marked colored. And if you were a person of color, you took your oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on that particular Bible. Is it possible that our religious tradition, that the good book is a segregated book? Do you think that the Bibles marked colored were missing Deuteronomy chapter 29? No, we're told that the Bible has these words. Do you think the white Bible was missing? Chapter 29, verse 9? No, I think we have a religious tradition that sometimes is used to discriminate and to miss the point. But the Holy One knows better than that. All of us count. Everyone kulchem. Now, as Nitzavim says, if you're not included in the covenant, then you don't count. Friends, the Bible tells us the question of who is in and who is out is so important that we're not allowed to sit it out. You know what it means to sit it out? It means not to stand up. It means not to actually raise your voice. It means not to show up. Nitzavim is not for those who are going to sit it out. Nitzavim is for those who are going to stand and be counted. Sitting is passive, standing is not. All of us here today, activists and leaders, believers in democracy, we're not. Oh no, we're not going to sit this one out. No, we're taking a stand today. No, we're taking a stand today, and it's not just going to last a day and then be worn out tomorrow and we'll go back to our business. No, we're taking a stand today, and we're going to continue to hold our ground until we can literally, not only at the election, bring millions of people who heretofore are not going to otherwise be allowed to add their voice to our democracy. We're going to not just have the tribal leaders show up on voting day. No, the wood chopper's going to be there, and the water drawer, and every single one of us, kulchem. Take a stand today, my friends. And we're here today to address a religious question, a religious problem, an urgent problem. Because bigotry and hatred and discrimination, they are the most urgent of religious problems. And we're here today as people of faith, people of many faiths. and even people with no faith. But we're here to say loudly and clearly that the right to vote isn't for some, it's for all. Kulchem. You know, in Texas, which is not that close but also not that far, you know that in Texas, you can use your gun license as an ID to vote, but don't dare show up with a college ID. Tell me that that makes moral sense. Tell me that that fits in with the values of our country. It does not. In 2014, somewhere close to 500,000 people in Alabama lacked the ID required to vote, and so their voices were not heard. The people who are affected mostly are young, poor, the elderly, and yes, disproportionately people of color. But I'll tell you what, the God we love is impatient with injustice. And the God we love commands us to stand against hate, against the epidemic of gun violence, against the mass incarceration of black men, against homophobia and xenophobia. That's what being a person of faith is all about. And you say, but we're here to talk about voting rights. Why are you mentioning all those things? Because friends, that's how we change the world from what it is into what it ought to be. If more people don't raise their voices and add their votes, then all that's wrong will just keep going along. God knows Black Lives Matter, so why don't all Americans know that? If you're not allowed to vote, then your country is saying that you don't matter. My faith and yours prohibits silence in the face of discrimination and injustice. Can we be silent when the precious, most fundamental right to vote is being attacked? Can we? No. Can we be silent when our inner city youth are out of school, out of jobs, out of hope? No. Can we be silent when our children, not someone else's children, our children, like Freddie Gray and Michael Brown and Tamir Rice and Trayvon Martin and Rekia Boyd, are gunned down every day in our streets? Can we be silent? No. This past Sunday, our Jewish community observed a day of mourning. We call that day Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av. And on Sunday, we mourn the litany of times when hate prevailed in the life of the Jewish people, killing our people, destroying our temple, but never, ever extinguishing our commitment to shape a world of justice, compassion, and yes, love. And as inspired by our First Lady, who said when she spoke so eloquently, it was a few just weeks ago, she said, when they go low, we go high. So today could be a day of righteous hate against those who create obstacle after obstacle, preventing people from exercising their fundamental right to vote. But today isn't a day of hate. Today, as you heard, is a day of love. Today is not a day of mourning, but a day of action. As you heard, today is the 15th day of the Hebrew month of Av, by its acronym, Tu B'Av. And in the Talmud, that great compendium of Jewish wisdom, we learned that 2,000 years ago, on a hot Jerusalem day, young men and women would go out to a field just outside of Jerusalem, hoping they would find a partner for life. Now the question is, how did they know they'd find the right one? Well, the Talmud tells us. Nobody could get dressed up in fancy clothes. No, everybody had to wear the same simple garment. And it could not even be your garment. You had to borrow that plain white clothing. What did that do? That was a way of democratizing, so that the child of the tribal leader and the child of the wood chopper, well, they could find each other because love knows no bounds. That reminds us, when it comes to love, there's no in and out. There's only in. And so on this day of love, we have love motivating our work. You know that in 2016, 15 states will have new voting restrictions in place for the first time in a presidential election. That's not progress. No, that's going not 2 steps sideways. That's not going a half step forward. That's going 20 steps backward. And what are they doing? These new laws range from strict voter ID requirements to early voting cutbacks to registration restrictions. Where are those 15 states? Are they all right here in the neighborhood? Turns out they're not. The 15 states are Alabama, Arizona, Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Mississippi, Nebraska, New Hampshire, Ohio, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and Wisconsin. They're north, south, east, and west. This is an epidemic of discrimination. Our democracy is stronger when people can exercise their right to vote. In many communities, you know what we do with our right to vote? You know that in my community, the sheriff is elected on election day. So what's going to change when more people vote? Law enforcement can change. Local leadership, statewide, all across the country. The right to vote is literally the doorway into a stronger, more profound, even prophetic, and certainly more solid country for us. That's what's riding on this voter rights campaign of ours. It's going to actually make a different America possible. It's going to allow us to realize the dream. It's going to allow us to realize the dream we have for this great country. Now, I, like you, have heard that the reason all these voter suppression laws come into being because, well, there's all this fraud. There's this tremendous epidemic of fraud, and we need these voter suppression laws to protect our democracy. And many Americans remember those vivid stories of voting improprieties in places like Chicago where we vote early and often. Or maybe you know Governor Earl Long's quip, "When I die, I want to be buried in Louisiana so I can stay active in politics." It's important to protect the integrity of our elections. I'm not making light of that, but we must be careful not to undermine free and fair access to the ballot in the name of preventing voter fraud. The Brenner Center at NYU School of Law has an ongoing examination of voter fraud. You know what they found? They found that claims reveal that voter fraud is unbelievably rare, if ever it is found. And voter impersonation is nearly non-existent. So the epidemic that is literally invoked with these voter suppression laws does not exist. We have got right on our side, and no one, I don't care where you sit on the political spectrum, no one can want to exclude one single vote, and particularly those who are kept out are the voices we desperately need to hear. Atem Nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem. You stand today, all of you, all of us, kulchem, before the eternal our God. The Torah isn't just listing the people who are included. It's instructing us to create bonds of respect and love and mutuality, especially with those who are different than me. Those who dress, vote, earn, practice their faith differently, well, they're part of our circle of responsibility and, yes, love. And now we have the sacred task to make certain that millions of eligible voters will not be kept out of that voting booth. That is a sacred responsibility. Tonight isn't about what happens here in this great temple with all the amazing faith leaders and all the enormous commitment. Tonight is about tomorrow. And then it's about Saturday, and it's about Sunday, and it's about September, and it's about October, and it's about November. And it's about the courage to make not just a little difference, but a huge difference in the very heart of this great land that we love, that has given so many of us freedom, but not yet kulchem, not yet all of us. In closing, it was almost a year ago, many of us stood together right here in Raleigh, North Carolina, for a rally for voting rights. Well, I was coming down for the rally, my plane was delayed. And I missed my speaking slot right before Cornell Brooks and Reverend Barber. The rabbi is always supposed to go before the preacher. That's written in the Torah. So when I arrived, our teacher and inspiration, Reverend Barber, he was on fire. And he was preaching and waking up people who weren't just at the rally. There were people who were sitting at their desks miles away. And they were summoned not just to awareness, but to action. And as he finished, I was just sort of blending into the crowd over on the side, just trying to disappear. And Reverend Barber found me in his gaze and said, "Come on up here and say a few words for the people." Rabbi Joachim Prince was the rabbi who spoke just before Dr. King. The rabbi always speaks before the preacher. I got caught last year, but I will not get caught this year.